It is Friday, March 19th. Thank you to everyone joining us on Facebook Live and, of course, here on Zoom. I am Bree, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my friend and co-host Melissa McDaniel, founder of Turning Point Dance Creations and social justice advocate. She's a choreographer, an educator, a creator as well, and I'm just so honored to do this work with her every week. This has been a challenging year for the dance industry, and it's been a tumultuous time around the world with many social issues taking the spotlight over the past year under the watchful eyes and ears of children all over the world who are looking to us as adults to model what we want them to be and how we want them to act and receive information. We're going to take a deep dive today with evidence-based research and explore, does activism have a place in the dance studio environment? So important, so timely to recognize, especially in today's dance world. Before we introduce our guest panelists, I want to give a few reminders. Throughout the episode, you're going to see Melissa and me looking around. We have screens to our right, to our left, in front of us, everywhere, and we are monitoring our chats on Zoom, Facebook, and Instagram, engaging all of our viewers, and we want to make sure we get your questions answered by the end of the episode. So if you have anything that you want to contribute, questions or comments, thoughts, please, we want to hear from you. This is an open discussion so we can all learn and grow and take a step forward together to more equitable, safe dance spaces for all. And be sure to share this episode when we're done. Share it, push it out to as many people as you know, because when we know better, we do better. So having conversations like the one we're having today is going to help us in the long term. So Melissa, let's get started and introduce our special guest expert.
Yes, I am so honored to introduce Cassandra Springs, a business owner, choreographer, and dance educator currently living in Atlanta, Georgia, but originally from my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina,
where
she trained and worked with choreographers, dance teams, and dancers across the nation. She received her competitive dance training from Dance Productions Performing Arts Studio, where she earned various awards, including the title of Miss Dance of North Carolina and Top Senior Soloist at Nationals. After high school, Cassandra pursued higher education at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. There she was a member of the dance team, the captain of the dance team, and received a BA in Dance Studies with K-12 teaching licensure. After graduating from UNCG, Cassandra continued to her performing career, appearing in the movie Bolden, dancing commercially for recording artists. Is that IAS, Cassandra?
That is IAS.
Yes. IAS, Genuine, and as a member of Technology Theater and Dance Company. Currently, Cassandra teaches master classes and choreographs for studios and dance teams through her company, Elite Danceworks, and serves as an adjudicator for various dance competitions. And is in her 8th year of teaching dance at a magnet performing arts high school. Both worlds, academic and dance studio. I've been there, so I definitely want to touch on that. She also teaches Jazz Weekly at Rhythm Studios, an industry dance studio in the metro Atlanta area. Cassandra loves sharing her knowledge and passion for dance with students and clients. Hopes to inspire, motivate, and challenge them beyond what they believe they can be. Thank you so much, Cassandra. You are doing the work on the ground, in the studio, in the school. We are just so happy to have you here. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I think sometimes we don't realize how much we're doing. And so to be asked to be a part of this conversation really means a lot to me. And I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So you have taken, one of the reasons you were just on our radar is because you have taken some pretty bold public steps to address social justice issues on your social media and on your website for your company. And this is, we hadn't planned it this way, but this has turned out to be a very timely issue because, and we confront things head on here, and we tackle the big issues. We know that there are some very disturbing things that have come to light this week that happened at Star System's dance competition with racial profiling. The owner of the dance competition has issued a formal apology and stepped down from her post as CEO of the company. Is going to pass it on to someone else in light of this, and has also pledged to take a stance in being more educated and more open to learning how she should handle situations like that. Also, we have had the very, very terrible recent Asian hate crimes in Georgia where lives were lost based on hatred and prejudice against Asian people. So we really just want to start out by talking about, why do you think, in light of everything that's going on, why is it so important to use your platform in the way that you have used your platform?
Thank you. Yes, so much has gone on. And I think after the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, I honestly just felt hopeless. A lot of what I do comes from my personal experiences. And I just felt this overwhelming, deafening, silent response within my immediate dance community regarding what was going on. Unfortunately, police brutality and racism against Black men, women, and children is not something that's new in this country historically. But for some reason, this incident felt different. It struck me differently. I think that despite we were in quarantine, this was still a reality for Black Americans, kind of hit home for me, and it was out in the open for the world to see. So it was traumatizing for me, to say the least, but I think often we're just expected to kind of go on as if, you know, this isn't happening, or it's happening, or it's brushed under the rug. And it's become something that's normalized. Mm-hmm. And, you know, these are discussions that I've always had in my private friendships and family members and things like that. But I knew I needed to become more public with my stance and views surrounding race, particularly in the dance space as a mentor, teacher, educator, adjudicator, and business owner. These are all positions of leadership that I highly value. And so I just felt it was time for me to take that step.
Did you find it challenging? Because I know, you know, there's so many people out there that, you know, believe these things, you know, in their heart. They believe a certain way, and they advocate for certain things personally. But there's also a certain segment of the population that feel like you can't cross over and bring in that your personal belief system and value system into your business, that you have to be welcoming to all. How do you feel about that?
As a business owner, I've always been inclusive in my practices. So I never felt like it was straying away from who I am as a person. I'm often hired to come in and work in, you know, different studios and schools. And the first thing you're going to see is me. I can't get rid of the fact that I'm a Black woman. I'm curvy, you know, and we'll touch on this a little bit later. But I think that it's important to stay true to who you are and have that be a natural, your businesses and your ventures and your life goals be a natural progression off of those things that you believe in. And so,
yeah, I agree. As a business owner, I truly don't know how people walk that line, because I don't know how we would have our business without, you know, putting ourselves into it. It's just so natural, and I don't know how you do it another way. But I also want to highlight, it's really important to know, you know, the murder of George Floyd is when, you know, the world went, I would say everybody wants to say everybody's woke now, but it's been going on for a long time. This was not by any means an isolated incident. Why do you think that incident captured so much attention? And are you encouraged by the response now as opposed to previous years and previous instances?
I am encouraged. I think that it did, like I said in the previous question, it hit home because we were all at home. We were all forced to, you know, be in isolation and confront it. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that through everyone, you know, being exposed to this, no one could hide. It couldn't be something that we could brush under the rug or hide from anymore. It needed to be confronted. The conversations needed to be happen. And I'm so thankful that we live in an era of social media. I think it can go either way for different people, but I believe that social media is a powerful tool that can be
when used for good. When we harness its power for good.
Exactly. When used for good, when used for positive things, absolutely. But I think social media definitely played a huge role in the awareness of George Floyd and, you know, people being able to actually voice their opinions and how they feel about things.
Thank you. And last question, I know I'm already doing it. I'm going off.
You're fine. You're fine.
But did you wait? So you're very vocal. You're very you advocate very clearly on your business website for programs, and you take a very strong stance in many different areas. How has that been received by the families at your studio? Have you gotten anybody that is maybe not as receptive? And how, if so, how have you addressed that?
I haven't really had any direct run-ins with people who have had issues with me. And because I don't run a studio, I'm going into people's businesses. I just try to be selective with, who I'm working with and make sure that their values and their goals and their vision aligns with mine. So I am lucky in the fact that I can kind of choose who I want to work with and collaborate with. So I haven't gotten any pushback, but I will say that it was hard for me initially. It was hard for me initially to stand up because, you don't want to step on toes. But again, it's part of who I am. It's part of what I believe in. It's embedded in who I am as an individual. And so it's important. That outweighed, any backlash that I may receive or any clients who may choose not to work with me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. We're going to talk more about this as the episode continues, and we're definitely going to talk current events as well. But let's get into we start with the basics. We like to establish a foundation at the beginning of these conversations. So activism is formally defined as a doctrine that emphasizes direct, vigorous action, especially in support of or opposition to one side of a controversial issue, political activism, environmental activism, what have you. Some people can be intimidated by the definition itself because it seems very aggressive. How do you define activism?
So yeah, it is overwhelming, or it can be intimidating when you think about the scope of activism and what that entails. But I define activism as supporting a cause through continued education and action. I think education can be attained through various means, literary and online resources, through conversations with experts, through documentaries, etc. There's so much information out there. And then likewise, the action piece can take several forms as well. So spreading awareness and educating others, sharing resources, volunteering your time to an effort, protesting, donating, using your voice and your gifts to highlight an issue, joining an organization that supports a cause that you're passionate about. But it also involves, and I think sometimes we miss the mark on this, is that it involves some reflection and some introspection and making sure that you're growing and adjusting your actions and your beliefs or your behaviors that don't align with your new knowledge.
And also one thing I've learned on my journey through all of this, because I will say my world completely opened up this past summer, and I really did take a step back personally and professionally with Apollo to examine, where I fall in all of these things and how, I had myself convinced, I believe, and I'm not racist, but what was I doing to be anti-racist, and how was I being an ally? And one of the biggest things that I learned and am still seeing and think is probably one of the most important things is it's not anybody's job to teach you. It is your job to make the effort and the energy to look it up and be as educated as possible. There are people out there that are, out of the goodness of their heart and the power of their beliefs, that are putting this information out there that is so easy for you to access. But at the end of the day, it is our personal responsibility to go and find it, to be better, to do better and know better, right? You can't just sit there and expect that it's going to just all fall upon you.
Exactly.
So I think that's so important.
Yeah, that action piece is so key. And then also, when you know better, do better.
Yeah.
To actually
thank you.
Take the steps to apply. Yeah.
And it's not enough to just sit there and be quiet or ignore it, right? It's not enough. You have to have those hard conversations with people in your life, and that's how we see change start to happen. Why do you think activism gets such a bad rap sometimes?
I think in this age of social media, some may have the view that, posting or reposting information for a cause is not enough. And I definitely agree with that. But like I mentioned before, social media is such a powerful tool to bring awareness to an issue that people may otherwise not know about, and an issue that you may not hear about in mainstream media as well. And so in order to be effective in activism, I believe that you must align that education piece with action. I think where people go wrong is they don't take it a step further to do the research, like we mentioned, and awareness is the first step. And social media can help spread that information in a way that we didn't have access to in the past. So
what do you guys think? I'm curious about this, and Melissa, you weigh in too, but like, you know, there's some people that just are not comfortable putting their beliefs and their stance out on social media for the world to see. And sometimes it's easy to see why, because they can get, I mean, torn apart on social media. There's this element of like, yes, we need to have respect for everyone's opinions, and when you talk calmly, and when you receive other viewpoints that aren't your own, and we talk calmly, and we use the opportunity to educate, that's when real change happens. Yet there's so much passion and power, especially in these dance teacher networks and groups on Facebook. It can be really intimidating for anyone to share. And then like the minute you hit like the repost or reshare button, maybe that's a big deal for somebody to do that, and they've never done that before. Yet somebody over here is like, you're not doing anything, that, you know, and then the person over here is like, I feel like I just stepped way outside my comfort zone by doing this. What do you say to, we can get a little judgy and people's efforts, right? So how do we kind of toe the line there?
I believe that, like I said, any step that you're taking to bring awareness to an issue is activism. Like you said, for some people, that's going to be sharing a post on Instagram. For some people, that's going down to the marches and, you know, protesting. For others, it's, you know, donating to the cause or volunteering their time. I think you have to find what works for you and what makes you feel the most comfortable. And also seek out people in your community who you trust, who you can have those conversations with. That is so important.
And what do you say to the people who are doing the judging that are like, you know, you're not doing enough?
I think they're part of the problem. They're perpetuating the problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think and you're right. There is this very, working in this space a great deal. There is this, well, you should be doing more, well, you should be doing more. You know, what you're doing is what you can do for yourself.
Yes.
And that really shouldn't be guided by what someone else says you should be doing. And if someone is judging or someone is trying to tell me what I should be doing, then they're not paying attention to what they need to be doing.
Exactly.
That's true in many regards. Yes.
If you're looking at my social media or looking at where I donate or looking at what I say, then what are you doing? You just spent 5 minutes trolling my Instagram when you could have been pressing the donate button, or you could have been walking down to a protest site. So those are, I don't give much credence to the people who are in the judging space that sit there. I just don't think that's appropriate.
Right. It's so important to find where you fall in. And like I mentioned before, there's so many actionable steps that you can take that don't involve posting on social media. There's other ways to be about it, you know, whatever the cause is. It doesn't just have to be racial issues or racial injustices. It can be anything. But there's so many other ways that you can become active that, you know, if one or more of those ways you're not comfortable with, you have other options available.
So I do want to, because we got some things happening in the chat, and I do want to acknowledge them. First thing I do want to say is to Bree's point, we were talking about, you know, how do you know sharing your opinion? Sometimes that can be scary, and you know, people are not going to agree with you. It can become polarizing and all of that. Yes, it can. Your opinion can become polarizing to people, but an opinion is different than a prejudice. So, you know, those are two totally different things. Yes. I can have an opinion about a lot of things. My opinion can also be prejudice and based in xenophobia and based in racism and based in bias. My opinion can be totally based in hate. And that's a bad opinion because hate.
I love that you're saying this. This makes
that's so important. So I want to put that out there when you talk about people. I just express my opinion. That's my First Amendment right.
Right.
We're not gonna get into what the First.
You still have to be responsible.
Is your opinion harmful? I think that's a big question you should be asking.
Yeah. And I do want, so we have a comment in the chat. The first question was, how do you know that social media is giving you correct info. And that's very true. This is from Anthony online. And we kind of touched on that. You have to go to your sources.
Yes.
You should not be reposting from places that you do not know where that information has come from. And there's also a lot of resources that you can Google and use to see if your information is actually correct, because there is a lot of incorrect information out there. Some of the other comments that Anthony has brought forward here, a question mark around burning down cities. Burning down cities is not activism, that's criminal.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about criminal activity.
No.
We're talking about actually taking positive steps to advocate for, stand up, and give voice and support to people who are being abused, marginalized, neglected, oppressed, forgotten, or actually victimized. So what we're talking about when we say activism, I think that this is to the point of the question, how does activism get a bad rep? Some people take activism and automatically mean you're going to burn down something, break something, steal,
Right.
or harm someone. That's not activism, that's criminal.
Or they see protests and they automatically assign that to something that has to be violent when it doesn't have to go there at all.
Right.
And oftentimes that is not the intention of the protest.
Right. So I just wanted to make that very clear about where that line is. And this kind of leads to my next question. So many times people associate activism with only racial justice issues. I think that that's at the forefront right now, just because of how this shift, this culture shift has taken place. And it has been catalyzed by an actual racial injustice issue. But activism can be anything: environmental issues, immigration protections, LGBTQ rights. I mean, you can take an activist stance in anything, children's rights. How do you know when it's right to take a stand? Because there's so many issues, Cassandra, like, oh my God, you could pick anything from a hat and figure out, oh, you know, I'm passionate about this, but how do you know, what guidance do you use to say, you know what, this is something that I need to use my platform for?
It's true. There's so many amazing causes that people can be involved in. And I think that decision is personal for everyone. For me, it's issues surrounding race, because that's what I connect to and it's what directly affects my community. I teach a diverse group of students, and I want to be able to empower them to stand up and speak for things that they believe in as well. And so I encourage people to consider the issues that they're most passionate about. Look within the communities and spaces that you occupy and decide what hits home and what needs your attention now. And don't feel like you have to do it alone. You can collaborate with people in your area to amplify the issue through collective action.
Mm-hmm. Liz made a great point in the chat here that social media is a great way to see other people's real life experiences.
Yes.
And a real life experience does not need a source. Thank you, Liz. So if I am on social media and I'm sharing something that I have really lived, a lived experience of mine, whether it be an experience as a woman, experience as a dance educator, experience as a Black person, I don't need to cite my source. My source is me.
Is you.
Yeah.
So
and it's important that we don't invalidate someone else's experiences, because you know, I'm never going to be or experience the same things that you are, or you either one of you are going to experience. You know.
Right. Exactly.
So let's move on to segment 2, because I know that we're getting into some touchy territory coming up here, and it's going to take some discussion. So
so you work, like I said this, and I've been in this position. I guess I was in this position for 9 years. I've been at a studio space teaching since I was 15 years old. I'm not going to date myself, but that puts me in 5 years of teaching in a studio space. But I also taught at a K-12 private school for 9 years of that, directing the dance department there. So you're in both worlds, you got your foot in both worlds, just like I used to, and a lot of us do. Is there a difference in the way that you take a stance in the studio space versus the academic space? Because I know we got a lot of teachers out there who are working in one of them.
So
because there's a lot more regulation in the academic space, is there not? Right?
There is, you know, there's a curriculum that you have to follow, but when it comes to guest teaching and the work that I do through Elite Dancewerks, I understand simply by me being there, showing up as who I am, with all the knowledge and experience I have to offer, that is taking a stance, because representation and visibility in these spaces are such a key piece of the puzzle. So whether I'm guest teaching at in a studio setting or a college dance team or wherever, or I'm at school, I try to reference dance history. I think knowing the historical relevance of something helps you to build more of an appreciation for it, to know where it came from and where it's going. It's important for students to understand the influence of African culture and tradition on the American dance forms that they're training in weekly, whether it's jazz, tap, hip hop, contemporary, modern. They all have roots in Black culture. And so with my academic students, when major social issues are coming up or social issues arise, I open the floor for us to talk about it. I give students the opportunity to share their thoughts and hear each other. And this year, I feel like that opportunity is especially important due to the virtual environment and having that disconnect of not being in person. But this is something that I've encouraged, through the scope of my entire teaching experience. Is my studio space is an open space. It's a safe space. And when things happen, it just doesn't feel natural for me to ignore them and not address them with the kids in some way.
What do you say? What do you say to parents who, children get their viewpoints many times, especially when they're young, from their parents and the way they're raised in a particular household. And as those children get older, we're going to talk about the difference in age groups in a minute, but as they get older, they may be influenced by things outside of their household. So what do you do when you have parents that say, on the studio side, I'm paying you money to teach my child dance? Like, that's what you need to stick to. It's not your place to discuss these things with my child. It's not, I don't agree with you. What do you say to those parents, and how do we navigate that?
I think that's a sticky issue, but the thing that I always return to is the fact that dance teaches so much. It teaches leadership, it teaches collaboration, it teaches critical thinking skills. Obviously, you have the physical benefits of that, exercise and that sort of thing. It teaches you how to communicate how you're feeling through your body. It teaches you how to take social and political commentary and turn it into art. And so it's a natural part of what we're doing. And so if we're not talking about it, I feel like we're doing the students a disservice. Art is supposed to be an outlet. Dance is supposed to be an outlet. And if kids can't express how they're feeling on these issues through the art form, then what are we really doing?
Yeah, why are we here? I want to kind of go back to the point about how you kind of use history, history lessons, and the highlights of where roots of certain things come from, because many of them come from marginalized communities, or communities that are traditionally marginalized, because they should not be marginalized, but they are traditionally marginalized. And I just want to make the connection that you have to understand that racism, prejudice, bias is rooted in devaluing a certain group of people for a certain reason, or erasure of a certain group of people. So even though most people consider activism to be direct action, and I'm going to do this thing, advocacy, support, and education about these groups of people that society has tried to erase, like African culture, like Asian culture, like any culture where dance has and culture has risen from, is part of activism. Yes. So, even if you're in your classroom and you're like, oh, I don't really want to say anything about this, if you make space for Black artists to be highlighted and learned about, that's part of erasing that devaluing process.
Yes. I think that's a great alternative. And going one step further than that, though, back to what we were saying earlier, is that then as educators, we have a bigger responsibility to make sure that we are properly educated, to make sure that we're conveying that history appropriately, correctly, respectfully, that they're getting the correct information. Because if we're going to give them that, and we are a source that they're forming their opinions and their stance as they go into the world, we have to take that very seriously. It's something I wish I would have done more and better when I was, teaching in my younger years. But I think that's something we hear time and time again, is that history is so, so important. If you're going to teach X, Y, and Z, they have to know where it came from. We have a comment here from Liz Kessler. Thank you for that question. I work at a studio in a pretty conservative area, and I know a lot of our instructors and staff are nervous about parent reactions. Yeah, I think that's that's common in many, many pockets of the country. And that's why I asked that, because I've been involved with studios that are in that same frame of not wanting to alienate any of their customers, or, we're all in business to make money. And so when you alienate customers, you're potentially affecting your bottom line and how you're able to pay your staff and run your business. But I don't know, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I feel like that's a common theme with many of the experts that we've had, is like, the end of the day, like it's not everybody's cup of tea. There's so many options out there, and you have to decide where your line in the sand is. And ultimately, if that's not the right fit for a family or the right fit for you, then there's somewhere that they're going to fit better. And I think it's best for everybody that they find that perfect fit.
I mean, your culture base is your customer base.
Yeah.
So you have to think, if I am accepting any customer and I am sacrificing my beliefs and what I'm convicted about to accept these customers, then my culture is not going to be in line with what I want for myself or my students. So
yeah,
say, Cassandra, you look like you.
I would just empower that to be embedded in the fabric of your business, in your contracts. We are not going to accept discrimination in bam, 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 all of these issues. Just make it plain about what you stand for, so then there's no question. There's no question.
To be clear, we're not saying go off the rails and just cancel everyone from your studio. No. And, there's definitely a delicate balance in terms of all of this. I mean, we're not experts in that regard, but you really have to dig deep and figure out where that absolute line in the sand is for you, where you're like, this is just not a battle I can fight or want to fight.
Yeah, no, definitely don't cancel all of your
No, what we're saying.
No. Yeah, you are a dance educator, and you are here as a livelihood. So you have to walk the line, but you also should never sacrifice your values in that space, or make an unsafe place for any of your families at all. Right. So you have to make sure that happens. We have some awesome comments. Elizabeth Wilson in Facebook Live is, dance is driven by the need to communicate and connect. Activism is a means to communicate and connect. And also activism is intricately connected to all of the arts, which is true. You think about really famous pieces like Revelations. Martha Graham did a number of pieces, some of which were banned in the United States, that were based in protest. So it didn't start in 2016. This has been going on for many, many, many years. We can be wrapped up here forever and ever and ever to it. But I do want to get to this, because this is very, very important. So you work with dance athletes of all ages, Cassandra. So give us some examples, and I would love for you to use some concrete examples of what you've done for how you've taken a solid stance on an issue and how it received at every age level. Like even talking about some of the things you put, the resources that you have on your website, like how was it received by people, and how do you work with the little ones and the teens and then the adults, because you do have a good adult population as well.
Yeah, I do. So I will say one of the most rewarding experience, I think, was teaching during quarantine, when we were all, in isolation. And I started this series called Class with Cass, and I held the classes every single Friday. And they were donation-based dance classes that I held on Instagram to support issues and causes that I was passionate about. And some of the organizations we raised money for were the Jaquel Knight Foundation and the NAACP. And this was very well received and supported by students of all ages, because the beauty of Instagram is that your reach is vast and you're teaching on a public platform. So I had students, from age 7 all the way up to adult come and take my classes, and, reach out to me after and mention about how thankful they were that I was bringing awareness to these issues. And at this point, everyone was looking for a way to give back, because of, the social climate at the time. And so those two issues that I highlighted through those classes were specifically racial injustice and COVID-19 relief for dancers as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get the idea for the resources page? Because your resources page from your website, it has maps of protests, place to sign petitions, how to text and call and support, how to donate, voting resources. It has links to BLM in different countries and spaces. Yeah. Like, you developed this just huge list of resources that it's like food for people. I'm not going to force it on you, but here you go. I am giving you the handbook here for you to help. How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, so that was actually a resource that I found externally on Instagram, and I shared it in the bio of my Instagram. And so I wanted to attach it to my website so that when people came onto Elite Dancewerks, they knew where we stood on those types of issues, and that people could easily access the information, for a myriad of causes, not just Black Lives Matter or racial injustice, but other causes as well.
Well, what a great way too, to just say, this is where we stand without having to, have the conversation or get into it with somebody. I mean, that's just black and white here. This is who we are. If you like it, come on in. If you don't, there's, another one down the street, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Really, that was really
so we're talking about how to discuss with our children, all of these things, and that's great. But as adults, how can we properly model and responsively model activism? Have you found that adults struggle with that even more than children do?
I do. I just think we grow up the way we grow up. We have these values that we were taught, and they're indoctrinated since we were little, and we hold on to those values as truth until we know otherwise. And so just being open to conversation, when it comes to speaking to children about it, a lot of times, when issues arise, my students just have questions. They just want to talk about it.
Right. And
so being open to conversation, and also modeling it in the way that you stand up for the causes you believe in.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, again, going back to this idea that more important than anything, showing our children how to disagree with somebody who has an opposing viewpoint, politely and respectfully, without flying off the handle. I think that's where so many things go wrong right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, showing grace and understanding for where someone is in their process is part of activism as well. You can't force it upon someone. You can share your views and your perspectives, and you can provide resources. And you can walk away feeling good about that, even if it's not received in the manner that you may want it to be initially. As long as you're doing the work and taking the steps, that's what's most important.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
And I do want to say, from the modeling standpoint, we're going to confront students, because it's happened with me many times. We're going to confront students who are parroting things that their parents have said, things that they've seen on TV, things that they've read on social media that may not sit well with you. And the modeling part is having that dialogue in front of other students, or in that space that's responsible and mature.
So is there a way, this is a dumb question, but is there a way to train for that? Like is there a way, because there is no training, there is no, academia, the land of academia has a little more structure in regards to all of this and protocols. Dance, there's nothing. There's no standardization. There's no training. There's nothing. So you're coming in, with armed with your bare hands, basically. Is there a place that, I mean, I don't know if either one of you know, but is there a place where we can go to maybe learn more how to deal with all of this?
I'm sure there is. I am blessed that I work in a county that does de-escalation training for the educators. So we have had that training. I don't know if that's standard in every district, but I can see if I can provide you guys some resources that you can share with your audience.
Awesome. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also think that, the point of never not devaluing, don't ever devalue the student's opinion, but also I think pushing home the idea that your opinion is your opinion and there are others who have a different one. It's kind of the way to handle, I'm not devaluing what you're saying, but there is a different perspective. And we all need to make sure that we understand that there is a different perspective and consider that your perspective may not be the kindest or
it's not the only. It's not the only.
I was just about to say that some kids don't realize that, you know, there's people who think differently, you know, until they get out in the world and have these conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So originally, this question, I was not going to address the issue specifically, but now I am, because I just am. That's just me.
We have to. It wouldn't be responsible not to. I mean, that's the end of it, basically.
Yeah. So for those of you in Facebook land who are watching us or here on Zoom, most of them are dancers, so I'm sure you know exactly what I'm about to address. But recently, the owner of Star Systems Talent Competition, Marcy Tuttle, was involved in an incident where she admittedly did not handle a situation with a Black parent very well. Just to summarize, this is a very long situation. This parent was there to watch his children. She had him approached and in the assumption that he was not supposed to be in the competition at all. Upon providing documentation that he was supposed to be there, upon being vouched for by his wife and his children who were also there, she continued to press forward with the fact that he needed to leave and he was not to be a part of the competition, even bringing security into the situation. Of course, it blew up into a huge thing in all of our dance teacher networks and all of our dance teacher groups, with some people saying we should not rush to judgment and we should not cancel Star Systems and we should not cancel Marcy Tuttle. And some people saying, hey, it's our duty to call out people who are perpetuating these ideas and who are doing this. In the end, I think it was either today or maybe late last night, Marcy Tuttle did issue an apology that said she did not handle the situation properly. Also, a number of different text messages and communications have come out since then, showing very racist comments and racially insensitive comments by her. So she's apologized for those and pledged to become more educated and way more supportive in issues that are centered around racial injustice. With that being said, I think that there were a lot of people in this situation who felt the need, and also many of the comments were deleted from some dance teacher network groups because people felt like they needed to defend Marcy because there was a rush to judgment. And that was also an issue. Like, okay, so now we're censoring people who are actually coming forward with these ideas. So I think that there was this need to defend and protect Star Systems, the brand, the person, for fear of retribution, maybe, or for fear of punishment, or for fear of being ostracized for taking this other way.
I want to be clear. Like, I will be super honest. I am not an advocate for let's tear somebody down. I'm not a fan of cancel culture in any regard. And I think, you know, when you have a business, it's very important. Yes, we want to believe people and not invalidate anyone's experiences. We also want to make sure that we're accurate with our information, that things we're hearing are true. You know, they're not heard second or third hand or embellished in any way. So I do think there's some merit to not rushing to judgment. However, this is not that situation. Let's be super clear. You can see, follow the hashtags. We won't get into the specifics and all the evidence that has come out and all of the facts attributed to the situation. You can follow the hashtags and again, do that work on your own. It's not anybody else's responsibility to provide that for you. If you're not aware of it, look for it. It's there, most of it. But this was not that. There is a long-standing history, which has been proven time and time again now with text messages, emails, people that have come forward with conversations about racist behavior from this particular individual, from Marcy Tuttle, from years and years and years ago, that are being brought to light. And I think the question we need to be asking at this point is, why did it take so long for these things to be brought into the spotlight? Why has this business existed so long under this thought process?
Yeah, and I know it can be hard when you're in this situation, you know, feeling like you mentioned, feeling like there's a rush to judgment and feeling like you have to call things out. But at the end of the day, you have to decide what's more important, your fear for taking a stand, or actually taking that stand and making a positive change. Like, integrity trumps everything. So by ignoring it or choosing to go along with it, you're also kind of still taking a stand, right?
Yeah.
And I've also been in situations where I've had to walk away from job opportunities because I brought something to the powers that be attention that needed to be addressed, and it was mishandled. And, you know, I could put those people on blast. I could tell my clients, you know, don't go to X, Y, and Z competition, or don't go to X, Y, and Z convention. But instead of doing that, I just decided to walk away and, you know, work for institutions that value me and value people who are like me. And
Well,
so,
and there's a whole nother side to this coin. A good friend of ours, Emily Bufford, who is a dance educator based out of New York, and she's just absolutely wonderful. She's the director of Young Choreographers Festival. You know, her point, and there's so much merit in this, is look, like everybody's like, you know, cancel star systems, and everybody, you know, don't go if you were planning to go. And I get all of that. I sincerely get it and I support it, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's people who spent thousands and thousands of dollars in this climate, and in the middle of a pandemic, when people are struggling to pay bills and everything else, that money is gone. They are committed. The kids have worked for this. There's judges who are scheduled to fly, and that's how they're earning a living in this pandemic. So I mean, it's not for everybody judging for those that are still on the fence about what they're going to do. Again, it's that whole other perspective that maybe you're not thinking about, that look, yes, Marcy Tuttle is wrong and Star Systems is wrong, and the way it was handled is wrong. And I don't think there's any doubting that at this point.
They've even admitted that. So that's why.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, we can just call it for what it is. However, there's a whole nother set of issues that come along with the instant decision to pull students from a competition that's been on the schedule for months and months.
yeah.
Are they going to get their money back? I don't know. It's hard to say.
No.
Yeah, that's tough. That is tough. I mean, we went through the same thing last year when, you know, competitions were canceling due to COVID. It's like, what do you do in these times? Like, it's crazy. So,
yeah. And I know some studio owners are like, we're out, and good for you. Like, that's amazing. It just might not be that simple for others, you know, and there may be,
that might not be an option for everyone. So,
and I don't think that there needs to be a judgment of whether if you go, then you're standing on the side of or racial profile.
But there doesn't need to be. But I think that there is.
There absolutely will be. I also think that there's a middle ground, and unfortunately, and Cassandra, you can speak to this as a judge. I'm also a judge. As a director, there's also something in the middle. A lot of people think it's either I'm gonna go sit quietly and vouch for this, or I'm not gonna go and I'm gonna pull the plug on everything. There's also a place where you sit to be courageous and say, you know what, you're my employer, but I need to talk to you about a really, really serious issue that just happened. You have the option to have a courageous conversation with your employer. And from that point on, decide whether you want that to continue to be your employer or not. But there's some in that I think that courageous conversation is what encourages what we talked about earlier, that excessive activism is either, you know, going to protest or doing nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something in the middle. So what do you think about that? Like, is that an option as a judge? I think it is, you know.
Yes. That is absolutely an option. And I've been in that situation as a judge with, you know, the company that I won't mention. I reached out to the owner, had a courageous conversation as you described, and it was not handled in the manner that I wanted it to. So I made it a choice to step away. I've also been in another situation where a studio owner was accused of you know, treating people poorly as it relates to race as well. And me being a new teacher walking in, that wasn't my experience at all. So I couldn't speak to that, but I had a conversation with her and let her know where I stand on those issues, what I would be looking for moving forward if I were to continue working for her. and it ended up being a positive situation, and we never had an issue.
That's great.
Wow.
So,
That's great.
so yeah, there can be two sides of the coin. I think if you're in a position where you're uncomfortable, you should speak up and have a conversation, give the person the space to, explain. And if the conversation is well received and it's positive, then there's a chance that you could, stay and stick it out. And if not, then you have to make a decision for yourself.
There's a chance to change your mind.
Yeah.
You have to understand courageous conversations may not, but they also may, because bias is rooted in you from very, very young, and it comes from a number of different places. And sometimes people are actually just oblivious.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's hard to believe when you don't come from that space, but sometimes people are actually just oblivious. And when it is brought to light, people have the opportunity to do better. And when they decide not to is when you have to make a choice about
Absolutely.
where you go. Candace is like loving it out here. She's like, exactly, Cassandra. Accountability is the key. Thank you, Candace, for watching and just hyping us up here. We're so happy to have you as a viewer.
I love it. I love all the support. Thank you all for tuning in. I know this is, again, it's so timely. We're going to move to homework because, we like to give action items and homework, things that can really make a difference in people's lives and understanding in the next week. We don't want long-term, we want short-term. So what is one action you want our listeners to take between now and next week to make progress in their knowledge and their work in activism in their studio environment?
I actually have 3. Is that okay?
Yes.
Go for
So
it.
I think resources are great because, we're having these conversations, but now we can push it a step further in our research. So I empower all of you to follow Black Dance Magazine. I think they're just at Black Dance Mag on Instagram. They are a wonderful resource. Also, as Melissa mentioned earlier, I have resources on my website as well, on the resources tab that have links to racial justice resources. And then if you want to do some additional research the works of Catherine Dunham and Pearl Primus. They're 2 Black female modern dance pioneers who use their art as activism. And those can also be some individuals that you integrate into your teaching with your students as well. So yeah, those are my 3 little homework pieces.
Thank you so
What's your
much.
website, Cassandra?
Yeah.
Say again?
Your website.
My website is www.elitedanceworks.com, and it's WERKS. You can also find me on Instagram at Cassandra P. Springs and at Elite Dancewerks. I'm on Facebook, just search Cassandra Pappy Springs and you'll find me.
I just followed you and Black Dance Magazine, so I already did my homework. So we want to give additional resources. Thank you for providing all of that to us. And we also want to offer for everybody watching and that will watch, we created the Steps 2020 initiative. This is a 4-part virtual course series that stands for Studios for Equity, Prevention, and Science. Every single module was curated by experts in their field. Our racism module was actually donated by our own Melissa McDaniel. And this is free. This is free. It's a resource for you. It's not meant to be everything on every topic, but we're going to cover racism, gender equity, sex abuse and prevention, integrative dance, nutrition, and of course, dance medicine and science. And you're going to get some foundational information in all these areas that will hopefully serve as a catalyst for you to dig deeper on your own with, of course, again, the ultimate goal being safe, equitable dance spaces for all. You can find that on our website, apolloperformance.com. Just search for Steps Initiative and it will pop up. And again, you can take that completely free at your own pace. We encourage everybody to do that. We have studio-wide staff and faculty members taking this course. We have parents that take it, dancers that take it. It is knowledge. And again, we're going from a place of when you know better, you do better. We also always encourage people to look at our friends at YPAD, Youth Protection Advocates in Dance, ypad.org. Melissa is going to pop a link in the chats right now where you can get 25% off their certification, their certification course, I'm sorry. And you use the code APOLLA25, all caps, APOLLA 25. You'll get 25% off that certification. It's an amazing deal. And through that, you can get certified to YPAD certified, which is really, really important, especially, again, the dance community does not have any standardization. And so they are doing great work over there. And again, that's ypad.org. Melissa, take us home.
This has been such a lively and important conversation. Thank you so much, Cassandra. It has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back and talk more.
Done.
Done.
I want to thank the audience as well for participating and contributing and asking questions. Your involvement is very valuable. So thank you.
Yes. We always have a pretty lively audience. So we're very, very blessed to be able to have a following of people who are interested in talking and really making some clear change in these areas. So as always, Bree, thank you so much for being courageous and jumping into these conversations with me and helping to usher in just a new era here in the dance industry. I'm just happy to have you and just happy to be able to do this work. So thank you as well.
My pleasure.
Next week, our episode is also going to be a very interesting and lively one. We are going to talk about how male identifying dance educators navigate common stereotypes in the industry. So we have Terrell Mitchell, who is going to be with us, who is highly vocal.
I cannot wait to chat with him. He is so much fun.
And Josh Fletcher, who are both going to come and give us two perspectives on a number of things that face male dance educators. One is the assumption of queerness when you walk into a space, assuming that there'll be favoritism of male dancers more than female dancers. Those types of issues that come up that we probably don't even ever think about as female identifying dance educators that are very important for us to highlight and recognize. So join us next Friday at 2 p.m. Here at Apollo Performance on Facebook, that's live, or you can join us in Zoom. The links to that are in our Instagram pages as well, if you want to join us here in the Zoom room. Episodes are available on my Instagram at tpbc_on_IG. You can press the link there and see all the past episodes. You can also get the episodes emailed to you if you sign up with us on Zoom. They're also available 24/7 all day long at Apollo Performance on Facebook in the video section. So check those out. All the free time that we dance teachers have to watch videos, but I'm sure we can do some stuff on the way to and from the studio. So once again, thank you so much. And until next week, we hope that you continue on your journey beyond the steps. We will see you then.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Cassandra, so much.
Thank you.